Welcome to another in our series of youth work during COVID-19. Today we're talking to Zara, who is one of our graduates. She graduated in 2015, and we're going to have a discussion about how practitioners, youth and community work practitioners, um, might maintain or struggle with maintaining contact with young people in particular types of work. My name is Paulette Sawyers. I'm the Joint Programme Leader and Senior Lecturer on the Youth and Community Work degree at Newman University. And hello, Zara.
Hello, Paulette. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Do you want to just describe broadly, since graduation, the types of work that you've done and the types of areas you've worked in?
Yes. Since graduating, I have worked with vulnerable and at-risk young people.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, generally, young people with, I suppose, when I say vulnerabilities, so these are all kinds of vulnerabilities, from mental health to
Mm-hmm.
abuse to exploitation
Mm-hmm.
to, so young people have gone missing. So yeah.
Yeah, so quite a challenging demographic of young people, really, and that doesn't mean
Yeah.
that other youth workers aren't necessarily touching on exactly the same issues, but to have a role and to be in work that is really quite concentrated on that is quite intense work for the workers and for the young people. Um, so I just wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit, really, because you've got that experience, that broad experience of that type of work. Um, we're in this COVID-19 situation, which has basically meant that everybody's now in quarantine or lockdown.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about that type of demographic of young person, what can you think are some of the challenges for those young people now being told you can't go out? But similarly, I also want you to think about what might some of the challenges be for the workers that have built relationships with those young people as well.
I think overall, and I suppose generally speaking, for young people who with vulnerabilities, that might be, I suppose, if you think about a young person that goes missing, it might be that the push factors could be stuff that's happening in the home. And actually, if there's stuff around abuse, domestic violence, substance misuse,
Mm-hmm.
actually a child being confined to that space is, I suppose, puts a child at a higher risk of, I suppose, abuse, and also that mental and emotional, challenges that young person will face. And I suppose for some of the pull factors, if we thought about, why young people are maybe out, or young people who's potentially, being exploited, young people who are potentially involved in, stuff outside of the home that, means they're at harm or at risk. Actually there's the potential that they're more visible, but at the same time, less visible as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think, going back to it being in the home, stuff around online use, the use of devices, and also online grooming, actually also again puts children at higher risk,
Mm-hmm.
because they're constantly now on devices. For some, actually, that constant on devices, and unless, again, we've done work around, in the past I've done work around, online devices, and what that's like with parents, to say, look, actually, are you checking children's, have you got parental locks on your children's pages? Are you kind of in tune to what children are doing? Because actually children are being, exploited online. So actually that puts children at high risk as well.
So what you've just said is interesting, because the NYA have put a report out about COVID-19 and some of the impacts on young people. So as the National Youth Agency, they their remit is to look at kind of, young people and youth in England and the United Kingdom, and kind of think about their well-being. And this report highlighted some of the stuff that you've just talked about, really. Interestingly, the title of the report is the Out of Sight Vulnerable Young People's Report. So, they're recognising that actually things that were going on beforehand where workers were in touch with young people may now, because of the situation we're in, seem like they're out of sight and therefore can be potentially forgotten about. And that overlooking of that puts these young people more at risk. And in this report, they had 3 major concerns, and one of them was about the increased mental health harm to young people as a result of the situation that we're in. That those young people who are experiencing mild, medium, severe mental health issues before the lockdown, this may heighten those anxieties, those fears, those mental health conditions, because they're not able to contact workers and have those relationships that they've had in the same way. The second one was about education and about young people who were kind of probably, I guess, missing or absconding from school before the lockdown, or who were just intermittent school attenders. And actually the impact of this now is, well, if you haven't got a good handle on it, how have you been able to get in touch with and contact those young people who were intermittently at school to make sure they're getting the input and the education? How are you managing to get, I don't know, laptops or resources to them so that they can kind of continue with some form of learning? And the third one was about what you mentioned as well, what the NYA call it the at-risk at-home group, which is just what you talked about. They talk about, they estimate that over 1 million young people are at risk of being in homes where they have what they call the toxic trio. So addiction, some kind of addiction is taking place in the home. There's some kind of mental health condition in the home, and there's also domestic violence. And they call it a toxic trio and say, well, if we've got over 1 million young people who, because of the lockdown, are now in those homes, we've got the potential for something major some major trauma to be dealt with when we come out on the other side of that. What do you think the role of youth workers will be when we come out on the other side of this, in whatever it looks like?
I think there's going to be, it's almost like, because for example, if you think of, I mean, I know we were doing some music sessions with children, young people that happen once a month. And actually, obviously I do like different stuff in terms of my youth work role. And actually, what will that look like? Because actually, 2 meters apart, how long will that last for? How many children can we have then, or young people can we have come into the studio? And actually, what will that look like? What will that look like for us? Because actually, us going back into, say, offices or places of work, how will we integrate ourselves back into society, let alone then start to make, it's almost like making connections again, if you know what I mean? Because obviously, even with our own families, we have to go and make those connections again. So I think it's going to be, and I can't really say what I feel it's going to look like or what, but I think it's going to be an interesting journey, and I feel it's probably going to take a while before things maybe settle. And I think there's going to probably be, a need, because we spoke about how mentally the mental impact that this is having on children, young people, and parents and carers as well, and everybody else in terms of, as a society. This has been a good few months that this has been going on. Actually, what will this impact? Because everything has an impact upon everything else. I can't really say. I just know as youth workers, it's that thing of having that, hearing the young people's voices and having the young person in the center of what we're doing. So actually it's about continuing to listen and hear young people, and especially listen out for those who are invisible as well, the ones that we don't see or haven't seen, or it's going to be really important that we're listening.
Yeah, and I think with youth workers, it's recognizing that youth work is about time. Youth work is about journeys. I mean, destinations are all good, and where you want to end up is brilliant, and that genuinely is. But actually, the youth work is the journey, and that journey has highs and lows, and it will plateau, and it will peak, and then it will go quicker, and then it will slow down. But it feels like, to some level, there might have to be backward steps.
Yeah.
As a result of COVID-19, for a lot of workers, the work, the relationship building, the reconnection, as you've said.
Yeah.
People might need to, youth workers, practitioners might need to just go backwards a little bit and be okay with the fact that you need to go backwards a little bit, because young people will probably need that, and they will have that safe space with youth and community workers to not be expected to just hit the ground running and continue like it didn't happen, but to unpack it. Their experience, and for some of that listening that you've talked about, some of that hearing of, well, what was it like for you? Some of the stuff they may not be sharing with family, friends at the moment. Yeah. But giving them that space and time to process, to be able to express it, to then work through with it. So I think there's something about like kind of going a couple of steps backwards before you move forwards.
And that space and time is definitely, that's going to be really important. And just I think for all of us, just being patient. And, you know, I don't think we can really put a time on this, even though, you know, I know people everyone wants to kind of get back to knowing that there is some normality, but actually, I don't think we can rush into anything. But actually just try to be consistent, and as consistent as we can be in terms of the support we offer. And for some of the work that, you know, I do, we've been able to continue that, you know, through some of my colleagues, we've been able to continue that support through the COVID-19 for some children and young people, which has been positive for them as well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for sharing your experience and for talking, you know, about this as a particular kind of work. And there'll be lots of workers out there who work with vulnerable. That's their everyday. They just work with that targeted demographic group, and just highlighting some of the challenges that workers in those areas might be facing, and some of the ways that youth work and the skills of a youth worker help to overcome those challenges, and just being a great youth worker yourself and kind of sticking with it since 2015.
Since 20. and
before.
But yeah, it's a journey is what I can say, and this is a bit of a I think curveball for us all, not something we were expecting right now, so be patient with it.
And I think be okay that it's a curveball, be okay that there's the opportunity for new learning, and let's just go with that. And let's just go with that and be okay with that. What youth workers do, youth workers are very fluid and flexible, and they can improvise and all of those skills. And so youth workers will be like, well, we'll just continue to hold the relationships we've got with young people and be that consistency. So when we're allowed again to mix and mingle like we used to, that familiarity of the relationship with the youth worker is still there. For the young people, so that they know that that's there and they can kind of push forward with that.
I agree.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you would like to know more about the BA Honours Youth and Community Work degree, please click the link in the box below, and thank you for listening.